Welcome to the Metal Verbalizers podcast, a podcast about promoting underground metal bands. We think that underground metal is very overlooked, and especially among podcasts, which is very unfortunate, because there's a lot of great music to be found. We started this podcast because we want to support these underground metal bands, and we want to give you the opportunity to discover these great bands as well. If you enjoy this podcast, we would really use your support. Some great ways you can support us is by rating the podcast on Spotify, following on Spotify, and subscribing on YouTube. Other things that will help a lot are things such as liking, commenting, and telling others about this podcast. All of this can be done very quickly, very easily, and completely free. But it would be a massive help for the podcast. Of course, this would be very encouraging for us. These things will also help the podcast to be found by more people. And the more people that find us, the more we can support the bands that we feature. So we would be very thankful for your support. In this type of episode, we choose a band and talk about things such as influences, style, lyrics, future plans, etc. in order to give you an introduction and an idea what the band is like. And of course, encouraging you to listen to their music and look into them further. I'm Johan Verbalizer, and this episode will be dedicated to the band Beatrix. Beatrix is a black thrash metal band from Finland and was started in 2019. But the band started to really take off in 2020. In 2019, the vocalist Safi started the band and began looking for musicians to join him, which wasn't easy in the beginning. Maybe because he didn't really know how to properly describe his vision and ideas. He had the idea of singing while playing guitar and recording it, so he could show that to people instead of trying to explain it in words. The problem was, however, that he didn't have that required guitar skills to play what he really envisioned. He ended up recording a poor instrumental cover of the song You Can't Stop Steal by Midnight. He also ended up making a live performance together with his singing and guitar class. In 2020, the now guitarist of Beatrix saw this video. Around this time, Safi found the musicians he was searching for, and the band could start working. Eventually, Beatrix had to kick the original drummer out of the band. I don't know why exactly, and I'm not going to really speculate about that either. But eventually, after searching for a while, the band got help from Jarno of the band Örn to find a new drummer. So Beatrix really wanted me to give Jarno and his band Örn a shout out in this episode. I am personally a fan of Örn, so I am of course happy to do so. So here's the shout out to Örn. When it comes to the band's influences, both as a band and for the members individually, these include bands such as Bathory, Tormentor, Sodom, Pleasure to Kill era creator, Niflheim, Celtic Frost, 80s Destruction, Aranoir, new wave British heavy metal bands like Venom and Angel Witch, as well as Japanese bands such as Sabbath, Abigail, and Evil. I would generally say that if you're a big fan of black thrash in the style of bands such as Sabbath, Niflheim, and Abigail, you should definitely check out Beatrix. The live performances are a very important part of Beatrix and are very inspired by the kind of attitude and energy of bands such as Hanoi Rocks and the Dead Boys. Beatrix is not the type of band that wants to just stand on stage or something like that. They want to really give their everything when they're on stage. They have the kind of mindset that if you're not ready to die on stage, you should just stay home. The reason why this results in a very, very positive response from the audience is, according to Beatrix, because there is something true and genuine. And I believe that too, because I think that it is usually very clear when a band is kind of like genuine about what they're doing. And you can really tell, like, when it's a band that like takes that extra mile, and you can really feel the kind of like really like how genuine and like the passion in the band, and that is something that I really respect and something that I really love. But the band even believes that it is very difficult to really understand what Beatrix is all about if you haven't seen them live. Even though a video can obviously not give the feeling of a live show, I would recommend watching some videos on YouTube with shows from Beatrix. It definitely looks like a great time. Yeah, and also it's kind of cool because Safi explained that he got a message from someone saying that hey, I'm watching a band right now and I really wish they had some you energy. I think that says a lot about the energy you can expect from a band like Beatrix. When it comes to the image of Beatrix, the symbol of the band is a praying mantis. Safi made it very clear that he wanted to call it a symbol and not a mascot, by the way, because the word mascot made him think of a guy in a squirrel costume or something else that can't be taken seriously. So let's go with symbol. Safi is very fascinated by the praying mantis, and he kind of like imagines that it would truly be a thing of horror if it were bigger than us, and yeah, well, I can only agree with that. The praying mantis is a big part of the image of Beatrix, and a lot of the band's songs revolve around it. They consider the praying mantis to be kind of like a symbol of evil. The word praying is usually meant as a verb, which, you know, gives a kind of a religious undertone to it. So it fits really well with the band's theme. And it's kind of like also, when it comes to the question of like if it's satanic or not, it's kind of like up to the individual interpretation. Like, it could be, but not necessarily. Who knows? It's not really made clear, and that is very intentional. Safi drew the artwork for the demo and the split they did with the band Abigail. It's kind of funny when Safi asked Yasuyuki Suzuki of Abigail how he wanted the artwork to look like. The response Safi got was basically bitch and pentagram. This is especially funny for someone like me, who is familiar with and a big fan of bands like Abigail and Barbados, because based on those bands, that definitely feels like a thing that he would say. Just look at the song names from those bands and you will kind of see what I mean. But so Safi gave him what he asked for, and also added the praying mantis. I think that this artwork is really cool, and it was definitely like that kind of thing that really caught my attention. So like when I saw that artwork, I just felt like I have to check this out. And another thing about it actually is that like this split was originally supposed to be a 7-inch, but one thing led to the other, and eventually it ended up being released on CD instead. However, if a label would be interested in releasing that 7-inch, the offer of doing so is still on the table. Generally, Beatrix has decided to take a little bit of a different approach than the maybe kind of classic satanic black thrash approach. Even though the band's lyrics deal with subjects such as hell, God, sin and demons, they've decided to portray them in a little bit different way. The lyrics are generally written as a kind of dark fantasy / horror inspired stories that deal with subjects such as madness and kind of like a world of illusions. Some big sources of inspirations for this are the manga / anime Berserk and Vampire Hunter The Bloodlust. The band feel that it is very important to state that the lyrics are always written for a reason, and the lyrics always mean something. The lyrics are also very influenced by their own personal experiences, mixed in with these stories to give it kind of more meaning. Safi wants to really express and reflect his own pain into the music. A song such as Torment of the Soul is, for example, about being lonely and dealing with your regrets in life. That's also the reason why some of the screams are kind of animalistic, I guess you could say, rather than executed with a lot of technique. This is very intentional and is supposed to be a kind of representation of that pain he wants to reflect into the music. I personally really like this approach, that type of kind of primal and genuine style of rock and roll. You don't always have to play perfectly and perform vocals with perfect technique always. It's something really special about those bands that just go for pure passion and commitment rather than technical perfection. I can't really explain it exactly, but it's something about it that just feels very genuine and honest to me. When it comes to the band name, Beatrix is a name that Safi has always liked. He thinks that the name has kind of followed him and worked as a reminder for what he had to do. So he already knew long before actually starting the band that the name is going to be Beatrix. He kind of like associates the name with elegance and royalty. Beatrix is both the name of the band itself as well as the name of one of the characters in these stories that the band's lyrics tell. Using a female name as the band name also comes from the idea that you're not supposed to know exactly what to expect just from the name alone. Kind of like similar to artists like Alice Cooper. Maybe you'd expect a woman, but then Safi and the guys walk out on stage. Like Safi said himself, there may be many female pop artists on Spotify with the same name, but as a metal band, they are the only true Beatrix. When it comes to the future of Beatrix, the band's main focus right now seems to be their upcoming full-length album, for which they are currently looking for a label to help release. They already have a few potential labels, but it doesn't seem like anything is written in stone yet regarding what exact label will release it. The band is also interested in releasing another version of their EP. As I mentioned earlier, the live performance is a very important part of the band, and naturally this means that the band is trying to take every moment they can to play live. At this point, Beatrix has never played live outside of Finland yet, but they hope that they will be able to change that very soon and start performing in other countries as well. So Beatrix is currently looking for someone who wants to book them. If someone does book them, they are promising a hell of a show. These are my thoughts and comments about the band, but now I would like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Beatrix? Do you have a favorite song by them? If so, which one? Let us know in the YouTube comments or on social media. We have now reached the end of this episode. It means a lot to me that you've been listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate that. We will be back to Verbalize again next week.